Okay, so welcome. So let's look at business analysis, planning, and monitoring. So this is the very first uh, knowledge area. This is one of the first things we want to learn how to do. So what is it? So business analysis, planning, and monitoring knowledge area tracks, organize, and coordinate the efforts of business analysts and stakeholders. These tasks produce outputs that are used as key guidelines for other tasks throughout the Babel guide. So you see, we're always talking about tax. So there are quite a lot of tax. And these are some of them, right? So you have business analysis, plan and monitoring, you have elicitation, you have requirement analysis and design, you have requirement and design lifecycle management, you have solution evaluation, you have strategy analysis, analyze current state. Let's say you want to analyze current state, which is a task, something that a business analyst should be able to do. So how do you analyze current state? What are the techniques you use in doing that? You see benchmarking and market analysis. You want to see what's the industry standard, what should be, depending on the sector we are in, right? So what is the benchmark? What's like the bare minimum? Then business capacity analysis, right? So what is our business capable of doing? Then of course, document analysis, then you do interviews, then we'll look at SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, it's you doing, checking your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities, and your threats. So those are the kind of techniques you use in doing what? This particular task. So if you look at the entire landscape in business analysis, you now start seeing you have some recurrent. So you have knowledge areas. How many of them?
Sorry, 6.
Good. So you now have some tasks. There are quite a lot of them, over 30. They now have techniques. How many of them? About 50.
50.
So you say you have some knowledge areas, then you now have the tasks you have to do in each of the knowledge area, then you now have the techniques that you can use as a business analyst to do what? To carry out those, what was it called? Those tasks. Look at SWOT analysis technique. SWOT analysis is a simple yet effective tool used to evaluate an organization's strengths, weakness, opportunity, and what? Threat. To both what? Internal and external conditions. Look at what it looks like. This is like a sample of what we call the SWOT matrix. So a business analyst, every business analyst should be able to do what? SWOT analysis for any kind of business. It just means you can do what? You can research. It means you can look at essays, you can look at documentations, you can look at videos, you can look at reports. That's okay. If we want to grow, what are our strategies for growth? Right? What are our strengths? What are our opportunities? And what are our weaknesses? You see, you're going to be having weaknesses, you're going to be having strengths, you're going to be having opportunities. So in any of the situation you find yourself, there's always an avenue for that particular business to grow. Take, for instance, weaknesses are actions and functions that are assessed, that the assessed group does not poorly or not at all, or does poorly or not at all. A weakness of a hospital can be that they don't do diagnostics. Is it a weakness?
Yeah.
So what are the opportunities even in that weakness? They can start doing things like collaboration. A lot of hospitals do that. They collaborate with other diagnostic centers, and once you come in, they can even take up your samples, they ship the samples, the results come in, or they do direct referrals. So as a business analyst, for every challenge that a business have, there's always a strategy, there's always a solution, and there are always options. So in doing business analysis, planning, and monitoring, you have some tasks. So plan business analysis approach, plan stakeholder engagement, plan business analysis governance, plan business analysis information management, identify business analysis performance improvement. They just have some of these jargons. What you to understand for each of the jargons, I'll give you the acronyms later on. For each of the jargons, you have tasks and techniques under them. Sorry, you have techniques under them. For each of the knowledge area, this is a knowledge area, you have the tasks, and each of these tasks, you have the words, the techniques under them. So the mnemonics is ASGMP, ASGMP, right? So that's the mnemonic or the acronym for this particular task. So with time, it's not something you need to cram or something you need to put in your head. With time, you get to understand them and see how they are very, very related. So let's look at the very first one. Let's look at some core concepts in business analysis, planning, and monitoring. So look at this text. Very, very critical, very, very important. Change. You need to understand what the change is. You need to understand what a need is. You need to understand what a solution is. Who are stakeholders? What is value? How do we say we have gotten value? Because at times, a business analyst is always looking at value. A project manager might want to just do stuff. But a business analyst is not concerned about what you are doing. He's asking himself, does this transcend to value? What derived value can I get from this particular activity? A software developer, or a web designer, a UI UX designer might just be interested to do code, that, whatever. A business analyst is asking, what value can this bring to the business? That's why these days you can have websites that a company does a website for another company. Let's say a tech company does a website for a company. And you find out that at the end of most websites, their validity is 1 year. Then after 1 year, you have to renew. It's just like ground rents in real estate. So you have to renew for another 1 year. You can decide to pay for like a few years. Why is it that you see a website that is active, up and running? After a year, that website is down and the business does not care. The business does not mind. What might be the issues? I need answers.
Maybe the website is not serving its purpose, or they're not getting the result they want from the website.
Good. So before I can pay money to say developer take and renew, I need to have value. True or false? So I should have value for every, what is it called? For every money spent. So that's the job of a business analyst. Value the worth, importance, or usefulness of something to a stakeholder within a context. So if you build a website and that website does not translate to sales for the stakeholder, it serves no value. If you build a website that does not translate to ease of procurement or ease of getting value as a user from the company, you see the company will tell you that, don't worry, don't renew it. You see, that's why a staff is going to be told, go home, we don't need you again. Resignation, or we sack you. Why? Value. So change, the act of transformation in response to a need. We can say, okay, because we have a lot of requests for persons to do remote trainings, okay, let us have a channel. Let's record the videos. Like Udemy have written me quite a few times and say, okay, please come and put up your courses on our platform, and there's a win-win situation and wherever. So that's the transformation, that's the change. You can ask, okay, I'm going to record the videos, I'm going to do live sessions. You are trying to meet a change. You are moving away from the conventional classroom stuff because it's going to serve the need of persons that maybe either busy or don't have all of the time. or might not commit to physical training, or their timing doesn't align with the timing for physical classes. That is a need. So change means you have to transform to respond to that particular need. A need is a problem, opportunity to be addressed. Remember, we're talking about SWOT analysis when we said weakness. You know, something is a problem, it's a need, because the hospital does not do diagnostic services, but it's also an opportunity for them to do what? To outsource or to partner or to look at how to deliver that service. So solutions, what specific way can you actually deliver that? Stakeholder, anybody that's going to be impacted, that have a relationship, or that's going to be influenced, or that have interest. Then, of course, context. You have to look at your solutions with respect to context. If you have a service center for a bank in town, state capital, to deploy that bank in a remote area, those are different contexts. So your solutions cannot be same. Possible?
Yeah.
So that's why you see some banks that are going to have their very big branches to meet the needs and the population. Even police stations, for instance. Police stations, you don't have police stations, they call them outposts. You just have a very small stuff. So, because in that context, to meet that need, that is what can serve that particular need. So purpose. So the purpose of planned business analysis approach is to define an appropriate method to conduct business analysis activities. So you have to ask yourself, all the things I'm going to do as a business analyst, I have to plan it. So plan business analysis approach. So this describes the overall method that will be followed when performing business analysis work on a given initiative, how and when tasks will be performed, and the deliverables that will be produced. So you see, for each of the different tasks you are doing and each of the different techniques that you're going to be exploring, you must have what? You must have what you want to achieve. Now, in trying to plan your approach, there are some inputs you need. So there's what to call the inputs, the elements, and what the outputs are going to look like. So you need some needs. So the business analysis approach is shaped by the problem, by the need. How you're going to approach, how you are going to solve a problem, how you're going to cause transformation and change for a business is going to be shaped by how or what the problem that you have. That's very clear. So you have a particular challenge here. How you approach it to be based on what the challenge is. What are the elements? Planning approach, formality and level of detail. Then you do some activities. You need some timing. You need to look at the complexity and risks. Then you need to look at what you're going to be accepting at the end of the day. So these are some of the elements for planned business analysis approach. Then, what are some of the tools? What are some of the guidelines you can use? So there's what we call business analysis performance assessment. Now I'm going to drop, I think I've already dropped a template for each of this stuff so that you understand for each of the tools you're going to be using or each of the techniques you're going to be using, how do you go about it? Take, for instance, business policies. Take, for instance, expert judgment. To do expert judgment, there's always a purpose, there's a plan, and there is a how you're going to do it, and there's a deliverable for it. Let me search that in a moment. Expert judgment. Expert. Okay, just a second. Okay, I can't find expert judgment. Second. That's a business engagement approach. Okay, because stakeholders engagement. So look at stakeholders engagement. So to plan an approach for establishing and maintaining effective working relationship with the stakeholders. Now, you know that for the different case studies we talked about, either the school, the bank, the hospital, the filling station, all of these case studies, we have all atomized their stakeholders. You cannot just start seeking interviews with stakeholders. You have to plan this. That's why I would say the very first knowledge area as a business analyst you need to understand is that you need to understand how to do your planning, how to do your monitoring. And some of the things you need to plan is, take for instance, plan stakeholder management. How do you manage your stakeholders? How do you carry out document analysis, interviews? Do you just enter into a stakeholder's office and say, please, I want to understand your view on ABC? Did you do that?
No.
You just have to plan it out. How do you maintain effective working relationship with stakeholders? Right? Stakeholders can be sponsors, it can be project managers, it can be subject matter experts, it can be the customers. At times, in some cases, you have to like pen down some of the strategy you are going to use. You're going to pen down some of the approaches you're going to use. You can say, okay, I'm going to, let's say, solicit for interviews. I'm going to solicit for, I'm going to have a stakeholder list and let's say map a persona. Persona has to do with like the idea about the person. You know, a banker has a persona. A banker wants to look smart. A banker wants to dress smart. A banker can afford to take a loan to sponsor maybe a good house, a nice car. A banker has a kind of a persona. So each of these is going to tell how you're going to do that particular planning. Then, of course, you have some what is going to describe change. Plus, stakeholder engagement describes identifying which stakeholders are relevant to the change. Not all of the stakeholders are relevant. Don't forget I talked about a domain subject matter expert and a implementation subject matter expert. I talked about someone that have a PhD in a particular domain, but cannot implement most of the solutions he had a PhD. Yes, you can be a stakeholder just to have views, ideas, and whatever. But in terms of implementing that particular solution, it's a no-go area. So that's why if you are looking at the stakeholders, you want to look at the stakeholders that are actually relevant to the change that you want to cause. Else, you might just have subject matter experts that are not going to contribute to the actual solution you're trying to deliver. So look at the techniques, brainstorming. So how do you brainstorming? I think I've looked at brainstorming a while ago. Brainstorming, okay, this is brainstorming. So the purpose of brainstorming is an excellent way to foster creative thinking about the problem. The aim of brainstorming is to do what? Is to produce numerous new ideas. It is not limited to looking at options that are available to resolve the issue at hand, factors constraining the group from moving ahead within an approach or option, what could be causing delay in the activity, what can the group do to solve the problem. And look at this figure. We've looked at this before now. So define the area of interest. How do you prepare for brainstorming? So you define the area of interest, you determine the time limit, you identify the participants that are going to collaborate in doing that, then you establish how you're going to evaluate those criteria. In your session, when you now get on board, how do you do that? You now share ideas, you record the ideas, you now build on each of the ideas, then you now elicit as many ideas as possible. That's why at the end of brainstorming sessions, you have what we call minutes of meetings. So minutes of meetings are like the elicitations of your brainstorming sessions. Then to wrap up, you need to do what? You need to now discuss and evaluate what you brainstormed on. You need to create a list. You need to see how to relate the ideas, right? You need to relate the ideas because you can have two ideas. You have to weigh them. You have to balance them up and now see which one has more credence. You have to know which one makes more sense. Then you now distribute a final list of what you have from a brainstorming session. So if there's one thing you need to understand very well, you're going to be seeing reoccurring in all of the knowledge area is what? Is your 50 techniques. Right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. So you see in your techniques, you have metrics and key performance indicators, because here you're looking at what is going to tell that we have actually performed. So you need to list them, right? So you have brainstorming, you have business case. So business case is what are we trying to do? What are we trying to solve? Business case is just like a document that tells at a very high level what we're trying to solve, how we're going to solve it, and what solution that we're going to deploy. Business case, a moment. Business case. So business case, see, business case is a technique. So purpose. A business case provides a justification. Why are we even doing what we're doing? So we need to know. Somebody says, okay, I need a loan of 10 billion. Why? Like I was watching one video, somebody said, you meet somebody and say, I have an idea, I have an idea. I just need like 97 million. So the question is, you're not the only one that is having an idea. What's your business case? What's your justification for this particular cost? We need to even know what effort needs to be put in place. Right? So in a business case, that document helps us define the need, determine the desired outcome, assess the constraints. You don't think, that's why I tell, if I speak to people that are retiring or people that are almost in their 60s or in their 50s trying to retire, I even have some people that are in their 40s, they want to retire, and they have some pension funds. I'll normally tell them that don't think that if you have 10 million pension funds or if you have 10 million in your bank account that you're going to succeed. It's not a guarantee. Are you there? So you see a lot of retirees or some people that take up loans, they believe if I get 1 million naira that my life is going to change. Nothing's going to happen to you. Or I believe if after my 65 years or 35 years in service, and I leave service and I'm giving 5 million naira, I'm giving $1,000, $5,000, whatever amount it is, it makes no sense. It doesn't mean anything. If you want to do business or if you want to do an enterprise with that, there's nothing about that. If you have not identified the constraints, the assumptions, the risks involved, and even mitigating solutions to each of these different assumptions they are making. You know, the assumption is always going to be, if I put in 5 million here, I'm going to make 2 million profit. In 2 months, I'm going to now have like 7 million. I'm going to now put in 7 million in it. I'm not going to make 3 million into it. Then I'm going to now put in 10 million in it. And I'm going to, so that's the assumption, right? But you don't look at the risks, you don't look at the constraints, you don't look at the mitigating, implementing mitigating factors or solutions to those risks that might occur. So a business case gives us like a formal document that highlights most of these things. Then it will help us to like recommend the solution. So what are the elements? So we need that needs assessment. That's why you see even in some organizations, before they even do anything, they first need to do needs assessment. The need is a driver for the business case. So without a need, we cannot talk about a business case. You say, I have 10 million naira, or have $10 million, I want to go into consulting. So if you want to go into consulting, the question is, what need are you meeting? So if there's no enough need, market need for your solution, you're going to go broke. So there must be a need that you're trying to satisfy.
Right.
So there must be a business case. So business case helps us in planning because it gives us an idea of what what we're trying to do, what the cost is, what the desired outcomes are going to be. Is there alternatives if this solution does not work? What is the scope? That's why I hear things like feasibility study reports. So over the last like 10, 11, 12 years, I've done a lot of feasibility study reports. Now, a feasibility report is going to tell you, is it feasible? Is it doable? What do you need to put in to be able to make that possible? There was a time we're trying to do, a client wanted to do a feasibility report. He needed 200 million loan from the bank to site an architectural college in Nigeria. So the feasibility report has to do with where do we site it and what do we need to kickstart and everything that has to do with setting up the Architecture and Innovation Institute. But in doing the feasibility study report, what we found out was that you don't even need 200 million naira to do that stuff. Because if you take 200 million naira, what will happen is that you typically need between 50 to 100 million. The rest 100 million, you're going to bash it. Then, because you're going to do repayment, it will be difficult for you to pay. Because in the feasibility study report, we're looking at what services are we going to render, how are we going to make money from those services, in terms of products, in terms of services, in terms of partnership. How do we make money? Then we must be sure that we can repay the loan back. If it's a business that didn't take loan, we want to be sure that we can recover costs so that we can do further expansion. So that's what feasibility is going to do. So by the time we came back and I told them, oh, please, you don't need 200 million, because if you take 200 million, you can't even pay. Have you seen where a lot of money is pursuing a business? And the business is bleeding. If it's a loan, the business will crash. Why? Because the business will not be able to pay back. So assumptions, risks, constraints, financial analysis. In that particular analysis, that the particular feasibility report I told you about, the financial analysis has to do with how your income is going to come. Later on, we're going to do the business model canvas. So you see what the business model canvas is and how to create one. Because a business analyst should be able to do a basic feasibility study report. A business analyst is supposed to do a basic financial analysis. A business analyst is supposed to do basic data analysis. A business analyst is supposed to be able to do basic SWOT analysis. A business analyst is supposed to be able to do basic model canvases. Because the business model canvas tells you what the summary of the entirety of the business is about. Who are the stakeholders? Where is it going to get the goods from? Who is it going to sell it to? How is it going to do marketing? So let me get a template. So can you see this?
Mm.
So key partners, who are your key partners? Who are your key suppliers? So all of these are under what? Partners. Then you see here, what are your key activities? Here, what's your value proposition? Here, who are your customers and the relationship, right? What are the channels? How are you going to deliver service? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be physical? Is it going to be logistics? Do you need the logistics company and the rest? So how are you going to make money? From asset, from usage, from subscription, from lending, from license, from brokerage, from advertisement. What are your fixed price? What are your dynamic price? So to set up a business, you need to understand business model canvas. To analyze a business, you need to look at the model of that business. That's only one of the ways you can actually make proposals for expansion, proposals for growth, and all of that. So save this and I'll drop it on the group. Business model canvas. Okay. So you see that there's several techniques. So you need to start familiarizing yourself with the techniques, because in all of the knowledge areas and the tasks, you're going to see, sorry, in all of the knowledge areas and the tasks you are going to be doing, you are going to be doing those with techniques. So estimation, financial analysis, functional decomposition. Functional decomposition has to do with breaking down that functional requirement that you have before. Say, I need to create a hospital lab, or let's say a hospital, let's say a lab, a diagnostics lab for testing for malaria, for typhoid, for tuberculosis, for HIV/AIDS, for whatever. I might need to break down into piecemeal. Are we there? So that it is feasible, maybe because of cost constraints. I can say, we have 10 equipments for each of these particular diseases we want to diagnose. So instead of doing that, let us just have two each and do them in stages. 3 months, we do two each. Another 3 months, we do two each. Another 3 months, we do two each, right? That's an example of functional decomposition. If it's a software, instead of us releasing all of the functional features, I told you about what we mean by functional and non-functional. Functional is the core need. Non-functional are those things that are not actually too necessary, but can be there. We talked about the must have, they should have, they could have, and could have. So the functional requirements for that particular software, we can just break that into piecemeal, do some, leave some, and attend to some later on. So who are the stakeholders? So we have domain subject experts, we have project manager, we have regulator, we have, what's it called? We have sponsors. What are we going to have at the end of the day? We're not going to have a business analysis approach. So when we plan our approach, what do we have at the end of the day? We have what? We have a document that tells how we are going to do this. Are we together? So we have input. What's the input to plan business analysis approach? Need. We must have a need before we start planning. Once we've had a need, what are the elements? We have to run those techniques. What do we have at the end of the day? We now have an approach document that tells us how we identify, tells us who to perform the activities, the timing, and the sequence of work that we need to do, and of course, what deliverables that we're going to produce at the end of the day. Confirm if you have questions so that we can end for today. So we know we've stopped at 70. Come again?
No question.
Okay, before the end of the day, I'm going to drop some assignments, and that'll be all from my end.